let's set the stage, guys. The Kyndryl found itself with a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to construct a new corporate infrastructure, but with the requirement that you do it in record time. Now, I'm smiling when I say, but that must have been a real challenge and an opportunity.
It was a unique challenge as a new company. So being spun off of, IBM Global Technology Services became its standalone public company called Kyndryl. And the spinoff basically created the world's largest IT infrastructure services provider with tens of thousands of employees working remotely and in hybrid environments to serve thousands of enterprise customers across industries. So as part of it, Kyndryl entered into a transition service agreement with IBM. And this agreement provided time for both organizations to develop the services needed to operate independently. It also provided us a deadline, November 2023. So for Kyndryl to exit all existing platforms and applications or face fines and penalties. So most of the technology, infrastructure, employee work environments that Kyndryl inherited weren't fit for our purpose. It was developed over 4 years and customized specifically to IBM's needs. So the legacy systems and tools were basically unable to support our long-term vision of a lean, modern, and secure operating environment.
So huge company, customers waiting, business has to go on. Other than that, no pressure?
No pressure. As one of the global, one of the biggest global aggregators of critical infrastructure, no pressure. But the TSA provided a rare opportunity to design a fit-for-purpose technology estate, ideally suited for our evolving business model and our expanding alliance ecosystem. The freedom of action that we like to call it is something that enables us to basically work faster, work smarter, be more collaborative, and increase our engagement while delivering greater value to our customers.
Yeah. Jason, what do you think?
Yeah, November 23rd, 2023, you said, or something. What are you doing here? Shouldn't you be doing something? But no, all seriousness aside, no, it's a big undertaking to do that. And not a lot of organizations get that opportunity. Usually they got to retrofit and work around existing infrastructure. So starting net new provides tons of opportunity. The opportunity to not only become a little bit more resilient when it comes to business operations, but also maybe simplify security, right? There's a ton of complexity there. And maybe provide better overall performance. So users are able to access systems no matter where they are without the friction that we've seen in typical environments.
Well, let's talk about this. Let's talk about resiliency. And I know this has a special meaning to Kyndryl and meaning to us all, but what does it really mean when we say a resilient network?
Well, from my perspective is that, and again, it's from a security lens perspective more than anything, but you have to assume breach, assume compromise. It's inevitable. It's going to happen. And so if you take a step back and agree that you will be compromised at one point in time, then you can build out your controls to ensure that you minimize the exposure to the organization.
Yeah. And Denis, Kyndryl has a special, this is part of what your practice areas. What does resilience mean to you?
Well, despite the myriad of benefits from digital transformation, moving more infrastructure, data, and applications to the cloud can really expand an organization's attack surface, exposing the company to more cybersecurity threats than ever. So transitioning from conventional vulnerability-focused strategies to an integrated intelligence-driven framework is essential for a resilient network and combating sophisticated and persistent adversaries. That is really, for me, what a resilient model from a security and resilience perspective is taking an integrated approach to organizational security, not just separating cybersecurity and resiliency, but we're looking at combining the two disciplines to safeguard our business from cyber threats and to help, ensure continuity when we face disruptions of any kind.
Yeah. Jason, if somebody has this opportunity, what are some of the objectives that you think people should be pursuing?
Well, ideally, I guess time was not in Kyndryl's favor here, right? So, and it's an amazing what they were able to accomplish in the time frame that was set amongst them. But if you have an opportunity, even though you may have to retrofit, you have to take a step back and look at it holistically. So I've always said this: if you look at security as a whole, I could, and I've done this in the past, I've learned my lesson from this. I could say that there's this new product that provides all of these wonderful controls, does sandboxing, it's on the endpoint, and it's called Security Ninja Endpoint, right? And anybody in the room in security would say, I don't know if it's real or not. I have to Google it. There's that many vendors in that space. So one of the things that we're seeing organizations strive towards is simplifying the security vendor relationship and building in a partnership with core security vendors and building a strategy that's wrapped around that. And drive towards platform-based approach to security. So if you have an opportunity, you want to take a step back. The other thing I really like to see defenders consider in any opportunity to revamp is really truly understanding the adversaries and that are specifically targeting them and building their controls based on real world examples of how an adversary may target that specific vertical or organization.
What challenges did you face along the way, Denis?
Going from 1,800 business applications that we inherited from an environment built over 40 years, and going to less than 360 business applications in 2 years, we came across a lot of challenges. You really need to have an appropriate way of analyzing which applications you should retire, which applications you can lift and shift, and which applications you just need to completely redo. There were 435 HR, finance, procurement, quote to cash applications that we basically moved over and transitioned into one Workday platform and one SAP platform. And we went from 54 on-premise data centers to 4 hyperscaler locations. And the value for us is, it made sense because we saved over 200 to almost $300 million in SG&A expense over time.
Yeah. And Jason, just from your point of view, this opportunity to simplify, I've heard this before. I mean, Kyndryl had a unique opportunity, but there's a lot of people who are now starting to talk about reducing the number of tools and simplifying what we do. Is that something you're hearing as well?
1,000%. As I mentioned earlier, I can make up a product name and nobody knows whether or not it's real without Googling it. I've always said,
I was ready to invest in your product. All you had to do was say AI on top of it, and I was there.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you ask networking professional, name 10 or 12 or 15 networking manufacturers, they may struggle to get 15, right? If you do it with storage, you do it with systems, servers, they're all going to struggle to go beyond that. In security, you can say anything, as I mentioned. And so many organizations are strategically looking at, you're never going to get one vendor that's going to do it all. That's impossible. But you are going to be able to simplify on a number of core vendors, and you're going to build a partnership that's wrapped around that. I mean, just cloud service providers alone, the nuance in security and capabilities in each one of them is daunting. You have to have a special skill set in each one of those areas. And there's some overlap, but there's enough nuance that makes it very, very difficult to scale out your controls holistically across just the cloud service provider if you're a multi-cloud environment, which many organizations are. But most organizations are stepping back and saying, look, we got to rethink the way that we've went to market up to this point.
Good point. And I know, Denis, I don't want to minimize these accomplishments. We were laughing a little bit there about the challenge and all that, and through this, but you were able to do a lot in there. And you talked about some cost savings, you talked about simplicity. Were there other things that you felt you accomplished through this?
From an HR perspective, just changing the culture of Kyndryl, the amount of change that we went through isn't an easy task. So upskilling your employee base to be able to go through this type of change is no easy task, right? So that was a big piece of what was required, and I think the culture change from Oldco to Kyndryl has been quite significant, night and day, from blue to ocean red. So.
Yeah, and again, not the first time I've heard this. Is that this is not only a technical challenge. This is a change in culture and a change in the way we behave, the change in the way we work. We keep saying it: people, process, technology. We skip by people, and I think this. I've heard this before. Jason, same thing when you're doing work in this area. Are you seeing the cultural impacts as well?
So culture is always going to be a big play when you do something as large as what Kyndryl has done, for sure. But COVID certainly drove a lot of this. And what's interesting with COVID is that we saw an acceleration to get business up from an operational perspective. And security, in fact, took a back seat during that whole initial, probably 8 to 12 months. Initially, it was in the back seat. It wasn't part of the discussion. It was really about enablement and getting people online. And then we started to see some of the risk. And I've always been a big believer that security is an enabler. But I use the analogy, and I'll ask you both this: what makes a car go really, really fast?
Well,
could be the driver, right?
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
Gas, the fuel,
The engine.
the engine, right? But it's in fact the brakes. And you might be looking at me, what do you mean the brakes? Well,
I am.
and the reason
This is
behind
good.
well, the reason behind it is the brakes allows us to stop. And you can't go really fast unless you can stop. And so you got to look at the only way to go fast is to have the brakes. So if you want to be agile and move fast in the market from a business perspective, you need security, not to hold you back, but to allow you to move fast. And when you need to shut down and slow down, then the brakes are there.
Yeah, and I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth or push my ideas onto this, but this is an interesting thing that we talked about. With the move from COVID, we were all just trying to get everything running, and security, in some cases, took a back seat. In this Kyndryl move, where you have a heck of a deadline, you can't fail. You still manage to integrate security, and as you said, Jason, we're almost talking about it like an enabler. Is that a step forward for us?
Don't get me wrong. It wasn't. We did it through COVID as well. So.
You had. You had everything going against you.
Everything was going at the same time, but the success of our cyber resilience strategy really depended on our ability to drive change in our people and our processes. So when we shift our cybersecurity framework and mindset, we identified several elements that were critical to our success. Employees as a defense, was very important. A skilled, educated workforce is first and foremost the best line of defense against cyber threats. So being able to train, engage employees to help identify, analyze, and recognize attacks really empowers all of Kyndryl team members to proactively manage and reduce our cyber risk during this giant transformation. As part of it, the second thing is secure by design. We embedded cyber resilience, including a zero trust architecture, into all the technology systems and operational strategies that enabled us to anticipate, protect against, withstand and recover any adverse cyber events throughout the COVID period, right? And we do a lot of automation when it comes to security orchestration to basically automate the low-level manual tasks. It helps free our operators and analysts to spend more time in higher value tasks like threat hunting or analyzing the cyber kill chain. What could have happened if this threat actually got through? And last thing, Kyndryl's identity management program was a big piece of it because, identity is the new perimeter. Being so dispersed and working from home, anything could happen. So, our two main goals in that area was limit the number of IDs each employee needs to access our systems and applications. And more importantly, establish minimal access privileges for every user and identity. So least privilege is it reduces operational risk by granting employees, access only to the tools and the data that are essential for them to perform their tasks and their jobs.
One of the things I'm picking up from this discussion is that this is a change in mindset. I mean, there are technical pieces to change in mindset, simplifying, security as an enabler, being able to activate zero trust, thinking that, and from a resilience point of view, that the perimeters get breached at one point or another. How are we going to react? This is a total change in mindset. And is that fair, guys?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, interesting.
Never trust, always verify.
Yeah. If you bring this stuff to life, and I think that's part of our theme of MapleSec is bringing security to life and making it an enabler. And so let's just take one final point of this is obviously many clients can't, or maybe they don't want to take the challenge that you took, Denis, in this, but they can't do a total rework of their network and infrastructure. But what could they take away from both of you? What could they take away from this that they could apply?
So, transforming your organization, especially radically simplifying it and modernizing your technology estate, isn't a one and done endeavor. It's an ongoing enterprise-wide journey. So we may be coming up to November 2023, but there's so much at stake, and there's a call for continuous transformation that should be a business imperative that cascades from any C-suite. There was a recent McKinsey survey that called for CEOs to personally take responsibility for the state of their enterprise technology. And I see it every single day with the amount of tech debt in a lot of the clients that we serve. But they need to do more to ensure that their organizations are prepared for a future filled with digital disruptions.
Yeah, Jason?
Yeah, I think it's about setting realistic milestones along the way, right? You can't bite off more than you can chew. And so, I hear, a lot of manufacturers have productized the term zero trust as an example. Well, we all know it's a framework and you got to drive towards outcomes. And there's a lot of complementary technologies to help drive that outcome. And so when you're looking at something like maybe zero trust, you want to make sure that you're putting milestones that you can achieve, or else you'll see this project run on for years and years and years. And the business may not see the value in some of the achievements along the way unless you really highlight them as part of that journey, right? Those milestones. Same thing with resiliency. If you look at cyber resilience as a whole, there's no other program in place that can drive resilience without cyber security resilience being part of that, right? It's a foundational element to everything that any other organization, or whether it be an organizational view, whether it be a supply chain, whatever it might be, you can't be resilient without that security piece being part of that discussion. And it's not always there. So you want to make sure that security is at the forefront, and maybe change it a little bit so people really, truly understand that it is the enabler. It's the thing that lets us go fast.
Yeah, that's a great place for us to wrap the conversation. Security as an enabler. So security is a way to elevate your defense capabilities and from a positive point of view. And we're going to do a deeper dive on that in a briefing we're going to do in the very near future. I hope to bring you both back for that. And we'll send invites to everybody out in the audience to join us. So thank you, Denis, Jason, thank you so much for this conversation.